So we see Brian Kelly and his coaching staff out on the spring practice field now. First impressions of the coaching staff now having a chance to see them lead in that format, in that type of setting. What was your takeaway?
Definitely. Well, again, we get 30 minutes or whatever it is, so it's not like we're watching the whole practice, but pretty high paced. And he talked about that. That first day they went 90 minutes, but he said they crammed 3 hours worth of stuff into it. So I think that the beginning of practice, and Kelly said this, is as much about making sure everyone's going to the right field, that the equipment guys are split up in the right way, that the student managers are, that kind of everybody knows what they're doing, not just the coaches and players. And I think they probably got through that. So they went Thursday and Saturday, and now Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday this week, or Saturday this week. So I would imagine now they're a bit settled in. We'll get a better view, but high paced, structured for sure. Not that other, all college practices aren't, but it's clear he's come with, the blueprint in mind of what he wants to do, and spring ball is a big part of kind of installing the culture. I almost feel, Jordy, that the off season's bigger than spring ball for him in terms of just pressing the reset button on the program. And the players talked about this. Kelly's talked about this. You ask around, but accountability, which maybe is simplifies it in a big way, is the number one thing for them. And we see it from all these, making them do wellness checks every day. Jack Besh told a great, not story, but kind of broke it down when he was talking to the media about how they have SWAT teams. I guess that might be an acronym for something. I guess I should have asked him. Not sure if he would have even known, but he's a team captain of
my guy's riding hot right now.
It's a joke. Please don't slap anybody. We're just kidding. I'm messing around. So he's a captain, and Mason Smith are captains, or whatever you want to call them. Yeah. They're the two freshman ones. And then I think he said Jay Ward, Brennan, Ali Gay, Ojolari. So all these guys who are considered to be the leaders, they all drafted, put them up on the big board, drafted the whole team out. So everyone's broken into 10 teams. And Besh said basically you get points for anything, whether it's a good grade, things like if we go to a softball game and any sporting event on campus, we have two other people and I don't think that counts. Two other people, from our team in it, that go, and we take a picture and we send it to Kelly or the staff. We all get plus 3 points. So, I think it's just building teamwork, building accountability. And Besh said, look, I've got to make sure guys that are older than me are showing up to class and doing all that. And, then they put it up every team meeting of what you're ranked, kind of 1 through 10. And someone said, well, what do you get for being ranked number 1? And Besh, dead serious, was like, not being ranked 10, where everybody looks at you and is like, they're the worst people on the team right now. And he said, too, that when you would get in trouble before, you would run, right? And you'd run either early in the morning, or if it were at practice, you were off to the side. Well, he said now all that running, or if you're pushing planks or whatever you're doing, happens at the dead center at the 50, and the team's practicing on each side, and it's kind of like you're sitting there with your scarlet letter out there, just running by yourself. But awesome. Besh just said, look, there's so many guys, and Brennan said this too, that so many guys that he didn't think, and maybe Brennan can speak to it more, he's been on the team forever, that he was like, those guys will never buy into this. They'll never turn the corner. And one after the other, guys are starting to fall in line. So I think the offseason is just about accountability, building a new culture.
How does Kelly spend his time on the practice field? Where do you see him giving a lot of his energy to?
Offense. I mean, I think he bounces around, probably, like I said, those first couple of days, making sure everything's flowing.
Yeah.
And he said that look, right now I'm kind of moving about, at all positions, making sure that things look good. But as time goes on, more time will be spent on offense.
Newcomers, we posted a video of Will Campbell last week that has went just like wildfire.
Oh, I didn't see it. What happened?
Just him in 11-on-11.
I'm staying away from all photos and videos. Your suggestions.
That's a good idea.
You might want to buy into my theory, bro. I got some good ones for you. This couch over here is not safe. Easy over there. Will Campbell is, it seems to be turning a lot of heads out there.
Kelly even.
Yeah, right. In talking about him, and we asked somebody the other day, and they were talking about, Wilson Alexander was coming by, and he was talking about Will Campbell. Everybody that you ask about a new face, it seems like he's the guy. What have you seen from Campbell in the offensive line, and is there any other new faces that pop to you?
I don't think right now, too, because when we get into these, like we got to watch 11 on 11 for the first time, which we didn't get to do that under Les or O. So we're at the tail end of practice instead of the beginning. But even then, the guys who are like, Kayshawn's not out there, he's hurt, but like Jeray Jenkins wasn't out there repping, like they were out there dressed out. Malik Neighbors, and then you get to the offensive line. Miles Frazier just transferred in, wasn't out. So, you're missing a lot of guys that you would imagine would be starting, like Cardell's at right guard right now. Tremont Shorts is at left guard. Wire was at left tackle. The center, I believe, is Charles Turner a couple of those days. And then at right tackle is Doomerville. But that's all going to get tossed around. So I'd be interested to, like, point being, we haven't gotten to see Will a ton, like just like first team reps, watching for an hour. This weekend, we do get the entire practice. Yeah. So maybe then we'll get a bit more of a feel for it. But we're talking about a kid who's considered one of the best offensive linemen in the country. I think played a lot of offensive tackle. I think he could do guard or tackle. It doesn't matter. And is coming, like, high school to college is a big jump. But Neville, at least you're starting out a little bit further along than some other guys. They play good teams. He's around a lot of good players. And I think he came in well coached. So he knows, hey, look, I'm going to come in here. I'm buying into the development. That was one thing when he stuck with LSU after the coaching change. He said, look, I've looked at Brian Kelly's track record of the teams he's had, the guys he's gotten drafted on the O-line, the guys he's developed, and certainly buy into that and dive in head first. So be interested to see how he develops. I don't know. Like, I'm with Brian Kelly. I don't know if that means he's starting right away, but he doesn't look like a lot of freshmen. And can you harness that and turn it into some playing time?
Cordell Music, hashtag Ask Shae. Is there a transfer that has stood out and impressed you?
Well, Jaden Daniels is going to be the one everyone's talking about just because he's a quarterback. Again, we haven't seen like so much of practice that you would be like, oh, that guy looks like the actual, Saturday when we were in there, Greg Brooks had a pick and then he picked up a fumble. But I'd say that, and probably Greg Brooks is part of this, when I asked Kelly, is there any position groups out there? Because he's gone through, we needed this help. We had to fill up here at the transfer portal. We still need O-linemen. We still need tight ends. And, I hit him with the 1-2. Is there anything you like? And it was, wide receiver. And I think we'd be good at running back. And then he said corner if everything goes right. And I would have said 2 months ago that corner was the one position on the team that had nobody. They were returning Raydarius Jones and Demarius McGee, two guys that have really never played, let alone started. And, Cage is kind of a safety, right? Yeah. So, but I guess they really like the transfers in Jarrett Converse, Mekhi Garner out of UL. Converse came from Oklahoma State. Greg Brooks coming up from Arkansas. So it seems they like those guys and perhaps what they got from Raydarius and Demarius. Those guys, again, though, like those two weren't out there repping. They had walk-ons at corner when they went to the second team. But I guess he feels like when they're all healthy, there's something he likes in those transfers.
Mekhi and Converse, they look like pros.
I mean, he
physically.
Again, Kelly circled when UL played Texas and Garner had a really, really good game. And then Converse, you're talking about a guy who started 40-something games already. I mean, he was all Big 12. So he's faced plenty of high-powered offenses. He's got, they're throwing the ball every play there. But, I think that those two you hope, the whole point is if you're going to get guys who are older, that they're helping you immediately, that they're starting and that they're bridging the gap to you recruiting and developing some corners, and that'll be on Robert, the kind of the whole defensive side.
Josh White made news yesterday that he's entering the transfer portal, a linebacker out of Houston who was highly recruited, a top 10 linebacker in the country. I remember Dave Aranda and Dennis Johnson having a lot of impact on him. It wouldn't surprise me to see him land at Baylor if he was jumping into the portal. But what does that do with him leaving? What does that say about the linebacker position? I've heard great things on DeMario Tolan.
Yeah, well, first off with Josh White, I always liked Josh White coming out of high school, and Aranda and them, Kelly and them really liked him. But I think it was like he tweeted out, I'm going in the portal, and like 6 minutes later, he's like, blessed to receive a Baylor offer. I was like, I'm sure you are. But I could see him. I mean, he's from Texas. I could see him going back to Baylor for sure. But I'm not surprised because remember, we thought linebacker would be a spot that they needed to fill up with some depth at, but then they go out and get, they hold on to Tolan. They get Harold Perkins. They get two transfers, West Weeks and Colby Fields coming out of South Carolina, Weeks coming from Virginia. So 4 guys immediately you've put into that room. You got Baskerville to come back. You've got Mike Jones. Jared Small, remember a year ago, he was starting, and that was Damone Clark and Baskerville's job at the time, and he tore his ACL before fall camp. He's out there. I guess he's healthy again. Like I said, get Harold Perkins this summer. I think they're fine. Antoine Sampa's still there.
Yeah.
And again, it's Matt House, the new DC, has said he'll be multiple, but the times we've been out there, they're going 3 down linemen. They've got a stand-up edge rusher, and then you've got those 2 backers. So, and that's usually been, I think it was Mike Jones and Greg Penn, who I don't even know if I mentioned at first. So they've got a lot of linebackers. I'm not shocked that White, who I think he was injured all last year too, so been here 2 years, hasn't played a ton. Not shocked.
Who do you? What do you take away from anything that you've seen from quarterback up to this point? You mentioned Jaden Daniels, and obviously everybody's going to probably focus their eyeballs on the incoming quarterback. But what have you seen from that position that gives you any sense of what the competition may feel like once it really gets moving?
Yeah, well, there was a thought for a while that Walker Howard, because he was coming back from that injury, wouldn't be throwing it, in the spring. So what jumps out first is you've got 4 guys who are healthy that are all out there and that are on scholarship. I mean, we've had a couple of seasons in recent years where they went through the whole year with 2 guys, Burrow and Brennan, and then last year would have been, after Brennan got hurt, it was just Max Johnson and hold on to your britches. Nuss.
Yeah.
So I like that they have 4 guys. I think that the competition, I don't want to write off Nuss, but I think that the expectation would be your 2 veterans are the ones really competing that you want to see who can win the job. So if we're, just for the sake of argument, going to talk about them, I think Daniels comes in and he's just trying to feel it out, right? Like he's the new guy. The other 3 quarterbacks all know each other. Even Walker Howard, he's been around Brennan and Nussmeier plenty of times through recruiting. So, he's going to be the odd man out a bit until he gets settled in. But I think for him, he's just trying to hit the ground running. We know what he can do dual threat wise. And Kelly talked about that, right? Like that he felt there was untapped potential in him as a runner. And we're seeing, Brennan talked about this, RPO's the offense, but they'll be under center. They'll be in shotgun. They'll be running the ball a good bit. It's for a quarterback. You should be able to have success no matter if you're labeled dual threat or pro style or whatever it might be. Does Daniels give more mobility than Brennan? Sure. Does he give more experience? Yes, even though he's the younger guy. He's played 3 years. But I just sense something, and maybe it's just from talking to Brennan this week, that he's dialed in. And I think it's the fact that when you're in your 6th year and you've been through 3 head coaches and 5 offensive coordinators and 38 quarterback battles, you don't really worry about Jaden Daniels anymore. And Brennan said it, bring in 10 guys. It's really me versus me. If I can play to my ability and he goes back, look, my memories, this is Brennan talking, were how I played in those 3 games when I threw for over 1,000 yards. Like that was good enough to win, and they didn't because they sucked on defense, but that wasn't on Brennan. He played well. So if he can harness that and as he said, stay healthy. He said he threw away all the flip-flops, bought himself some real nice boat shoes, extra grips.
That's what I like about him.
Yeah. Just
he embraces all that.
Let it go.
Yeah.
How can you not at this point? It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Brennan is finally just taking a couple of deep breaths and is like, F it. Let's go out and just lay it all out.
Yeah.
Let's compete. And he said that Jake Flint gave a good message to the team of, and it kind of like a guy like Brennan, yeah, you might be the guy here and expected, and then they bring in Daniels, and you might be thinking, oh, they're bringing him to replace me, but everyone here has 15 practices, and the coaches hadn't seen anybody. So put your resume together, go out there, and I think spring ball is going to go a long way in determining kind of what this team may look like.
I'm looking forward to the next step that this wide receiver group takes. All of them, Neighbors, Besh.
Who knows which way it's going to go?
Thomas, right, exactly. Where do you feel it's going to go? Because it feels like it's an uber talented group.
I would think the starters are going to be Kayshawn, Jure, and Besh. And, just Jure, Kayshawn, obviously, Jure, a veteran, and certainly can play. And they seem to love Besh, and they've put him in the slot. So you got those 3, but we've seen Brian Thomas and Chris Hilton getting first-team reps out there. Like I said, Neighbors kind of been standing around, but we know what he can do. It's a deep room. I mean, they'll be really. Kyron Lacey comes in, and he's got played really well at 2 years at UL. So I have no clue. Maybe they're just going to rotate a bunch of guys. And, sometimes LSU fans will complain, what's up with the rotation? Just keep Butte on the field, or whatever it is. But I think they'll be in a spot where they're talented enough to rotate a good bit there.
Have you heard an update on Deion Smith?
No, I thought all that was sort of academic related to where it was like he couldn't transfer, but they weren't having him on the spring. And Brian Kelly talked about that. if you're out there, then you're above the line, meaning you've met your requirements. And if you're not, then you're probably below the line or you're hurt. So I would think that probably had a good bit to do with him not being listed on the roster, but still in the portal and still going to school here, I believe. So I think he's just trying to get right in the classroom.
John Emery seems very motivated,
doesn't he?
This spring. What do you see from him? What do you expect from him?
Physically, it looks great.
Yeah.
But I think that, too, I bet it's the combination of the structure we talked about, Kelly. Frank Wilson can come in and get a good relationship right away with him. Realizing I'm a senior now. Like, I'm past that junior money year that I thought it was going to be. He didn't even get to play.
Yeah.
So I think he's dialed in. He looks great body-wise. He's older than the other guys. You know, these younger guys, Goodwin, Kiner, Trey Bradford. I mean, he's the vet. He was the number one running back in the country. It's like now, it's not exactly like Brennan, but time to shine. And they're giving him first-team reps. And as Kelly said, if things go right in the classroom and he continues to progress, then he's going to be a really good running back for him.
I am really fired up about the defensive line. Really, because
probably their best.
It's got to be their best when you think about
unit.
The last three classes. Number one defensive lineman in the state of Louisiana, Jaquelin Roy, Mason Smith, and now Quincy Wiggins playing on the same defensive line. When Ogeron said that day, I'm going to build the line of scrimmage and make sure the defensive line has options, this is probably what he envisioned.
He
right?
left him in good hands, and ain't nobody ever said Edo can't get you some D linemen.
Right.
So, I think Mason's in for a huge year. I thought Jaquelin turned it on at the end of his freshman year, and you saw it again as a year two guy last year. So I think he'll have a big season. Mekhi Wingo, they brought in, was freshman All-SEC. He's been getting some D-end reps, out there already. Mekhi Wingo, gosh, him and Garner, I get mixed up.
Yeah.
Wingo. But Sony Fanua's back, Ali Gay's back, B.J. Ojolari, who's certainly could be the highest drafted guy on the team. They're deep, and whether that's stand-up edge rushers. Xavier Carter showed flashes at the end of last year. He could be a stand-up guy for you. So I do like the D-line. I think it's easily their best. And we didn't, Jacoby and Guillory.
Sure.
Bryce Langston was someone bragged on all the time. We didn't get to see him as a freshman.
That was a guy that you would hear about that you wondered where he was in camp. You would hear, because you always were hearing about Bryce Langston when he was talking about guys that were shining, and then you would never see them in the rotation. So guys like that are, I'm curious to see where they shake out under new people evaluating them, right?
Right.
That's what I was going to ask you. You said that Jack Besh was running with the receivers. Don't you see a world where they maybe move him to the tight end again?
I don't.
Oh, really?
No. I think that they like him at receiver. And I think that's his natural. I think that's his spot.
Me too.
I think trying to put Besh at receiver would, does he become the best tight end? Does he become the best tight end in the room that you have? Sure, but then he's going to have to worry about blocking, and then not that he can't, but then that becomes a whole element of the game that he's got to really develop when. And inline blocking, when at receiver, he just does what he does best, which is just go make plays. And I think if you were moving him to tight end, you'd be forcing something that would hurt you more than help. I think he helps you a lot more at receiver.
Louis Caro asks, Shae, what's the latest on Phillip Webb? Have you seen him out there?
Yes, he was repping at D-end, maybe as a stand-up guy, but with the Ojolari, Xavier Carter group of guys. But I did see him out there. I think he was working with the second team. So maybe I think this might be year 3 for him. Could be a time that we see him kind of turn a corner, maybe get some playing time.